Hi, I'm Rob Rasmussen, one of the members of the SABI Early Career Committee. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for tonight's webinar, Dr. Jessica Robbins. Dr. Robbins is professor of radiology at the University of Wisconsin in the abdominal imaging and intervention division and specializes in CT colonography and women's imaging. Our talk today will be on cultivating professional development in the current radiology environment. With her background as assistant residency program director, as well as vice chair of faculty development and enrichment at University of Wisconsin, I know that Dr. Robbins will be an excellent speaker on this topic. The talk will be an open Q&A session. We hope to have a lot of audience participation, and please feel free to turn on your cameras if you are comfortable with that. I'll kick things off with the first question. What are you afraid of as you launch your career? Particularly for in the case of trainees as they're considering starting a career as an academic radiologist.
All right, well, thanks for that introduction. I'm going to let you all kind of simmer on that question, and I'll copy and paste it into the chat too, so you can see it. I wanted this to be more of a discussion because I'm not sure that I have like facts to give you. I think it's really more of a situation that we're all facing, and that's sort of like, kind of the competing demands that we all have, whether we're in training, whether we're early in our careers, whether we're established, and that is that we have increasing clinical demands or decreasing resources to accomplish those clinical demands, and we still, as academic radiologists, have the need to be academically productive. We have the need to be academically productive, perhaps from an institutional requirement, but also many of us have an internal drive to be academically productive, and we face a lot of challenges in the current environment. So I was hoping that we could have an open discussion about the things that you all are experiencing. What are some of the things that you would like to see change? Some of the things you'd like to see more of, some of the things you'd like to see less of, etc. So that is sort of my introduction. And the first question, as Rob mentioned, that I'd like for us to consider and discuss is what are the things that you're afraid of as you launch your career or contemplate starting a career in academic radio? What are your fears as you start this career as an academic radiologist? So if anyone is willing to kick it off, I'd be really excited to hear what you have to say. So I can, go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure everybody was able to come off mute, and we're not having any issues with that. So seems like Rob was able to talk fine, so I think we're okay.
That looks good.
I can just
go ahead. Great, Anu, thank you.
Yeah, I can just pitch, and I'm like 3 years into faculty, but like when I was starting like 3 years back, for me, my goal was like trying to keep up the volume and also try to achieve, like, as I've always loved teaching. I just wanted to do teaching, but I wanted to not be behind clinical thing. As starting faculty member, like, the first few months is like, am I signing off right? Like, you're trying to keep up with the volume and also trying to achieve. And then like, if it's a new program that you're reaching into, trying to get the connections and see like how much you can establish. If it's research wise, like academic wise, trying to establish the contact and getting information like where you can achieve that takes quite some time. That's a task, like a separate task by itself, apart from trying to be a clinician as well. So I think that's the first fear and hurdle that you want to like cross through. And once you establish the context, then it gets a little easier. But like, if there's a way that we can kind of figure out if it's easier to figure those things earlier, that'll be nice.
And so I just want to probe a little bit, because I think if I'm doing the math correctly, you said you're 3 years in, which means that you're like completely a COVID academic radiologist.
Then I was in fellowship, yes.
So how do you think that kind of launching your career in that environment where for the first year and a half or 2 years, like face-to-face connections were really difficult?
It was very difficult. Like most of the things were remote. Like, when I'm trying to do research projects, it's everything is like online, not knowing people in person. Like when it was like the second year, there was like part in person, part online. Then I like requested some meeting with some clinicians. Like once I got the face-to-face contact and tried to be in person for their like disciplinary meetings and stuff, like I was able to take off faster than it was online. Like it was difficult because they don't know me. One, they don't know me as a faculty. Two, to remember me, like even when we're crossing like hallways, like I don't recognize them, they don't recognize me, though we have spoken over phone quite a bit. It was difficult.
Do you have any advice for other people who might be at a similar stage who maybe haven't kind of found some traction in establishing connections with other
Sure.
radiologists?
My advice would be like reach out to your own section, like mentors, who are established like clinically, like being established, and they know people with other departments. Talk to them and like try to reach out to them. Set up an appointment, like meet with them with your ideas, or like even if you don't have anything like ideas as such, like you can talk to them, trying to get involved in their multidisciplinary meetings or like tumor boards is like the first step. I think like once they see you more, they hear you more, they know like what you know and what you can contribute to them. And then they start reaching back to you if they have a clinical question, if they have a patient that they want to reach out to. It's not like in the tumor board, but they just want to quickly reach. Once they reach out to you, then it develops the interaction. I give my cell phone number to them because it's difficult for them to like reach to the radiology and get in touch with anybody. And everyone is professional, so they don't just misuse giving the phone number and like call for every single patient. They respect ours, but at least they appreciate that you are reachable if they have a question. And I think that kind of establishes the contact. And then reach out to people who are in the domains that you're interested. Like if you want to get involved in medical school, ask who is the contact person, and then like send a mail and saying, I'm interested, I would volunteer for doing a lecture or so. And then once they know you as a person, then the opportunities come your way.
Great. Does anyone else have any thoughts on sort of starting to establish a network when parts of your early lives as an academic radiologist have been so impacted by the pandemic?
Yeah, this is Andrew. I know, Jess, you and I have talked about this, but yeah, it's definitely hard, especially when you're starting out as early faculty. Like not only those sort of social connections, just among peers, but even just institutional wise, like the whole workforce has really shifted. That even like support staff and people like that are remote still, or maybe part in office, part out of office, and so when you're just starting out as faculty, I think it's even harder than normal to navigate that. So that's definitely been a challenge.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Rob, I'm going to pick on you for a second. I know you haven't launched your career yet, but you've been involved with the ECC through SABI. What has been your experience in being a part of an organized group of individuals at your kind of rough phase?
I don't know. I think it's been tough at times with at least during early COVID with getting used to having remote readouts and not necessarily seeing faculty all the time that you're trying to work with. So that can be challenging, kind of depersonalizing experience, but I think that's improved a lot as everyone gets accustomed to those changes, as well as having more in-person meetings now that things have calmed down. I think can be challenging to still kind of find that balance of allowing people to be remote and as well as trying to keep people in the reading room and together, kind of joining that shared experience and educational experience.
Great, thank you. So this past week I was at the AUR meeting and had an opportunity to talk to a lot of residents who are interested in careers in academic radiology and early career faculty who were participating in a faculty development program, and sort of mid-career faculty who are participating in a leadership development program. And all of them from all these different phases really stressed the strain that they felt to kind of maintain their multiple missions of clinical and academic work, and whether it's education or research on top of their clinical load. And there's, I'm sure each of you at your institutions are seeing folks coming and going from academic radiology. So what are some of the things that you all think might be activities that either your institutions can do or sort of the larger societies can do to really help support folks who are passionate about a career in academic radiology, say academic abdominal imaging, for instance, since we are here with SABI? Are there any things that you think institutions can do?
It's one of the concerns I have in terms of going into academic radiology would be kind of ensuring that as a young career member that I'd be guaranteed or have some protected academic time to ensure I kind of continue the upward trajectory of my career, especially in the current environment of radiology where the academic or the clinical demand is kind of ever increasing. At times, younger career members may be shifted from their protected time to help with the clinical demands that are increasing. I was wondering how different places are kind of trying to ensure that their young faculty have the resources needed to continue their upward career trajectory.
So I can tell you what we do at our place. I mean, there's nothing formally written, but we have, you know, our promotion structure is sort of an up or out promotion structure. So we know that our early career faculty are in a tenuous position trying to establish their careers. And in my role as Vice Chair of Faculty Development, I sit in on the meetings that can help establish the protected academic time for each individual section member, and I advocate for our junior faculty to have the protected time that they deserve, because their career kind of hinges on their ability to make advancements with their academic pursuits. I think there are times when sections are short-staffed and the clinical load is so burdensome that those goals aren't always met. But I'm hopeful that our section chiefs are really prioritizing our junior faculty for the protected time, because their early careers are so fragile. They're like the spring plants that I tell my kids to not step on. Like, they need to grow, let them grow. Other thoughts on that? So for those of you that are either looking for looking for jobs, and Rob, I'm just making assumptions here. I'm assuming that you're in the process of sort of looking for jobs now. So either looking for jobs or early in your career, how many of you are aware of what your institution expects of you from both a clinical and an academic perspective? Or in the case of if you're looking for a job, is that one of the things that you are asking about and getting information about? So anyway, I'm going to pick on you because I know your early career. I'm not sure some of the other names. I don't know where you are in your career. Are you familiar with what your institution expects of you from an academic productivity standpoint relative to your clinical productivity?
I think it's kind of like they do give it in the contract what my expected academic responsibilities are, which are pretty basic. Not that I have to like dedicate my time specifically to have a checklist that I have to like reach every year. It's like station side teaching, couple of lectures, and med school teaching. And anything about like whatever I feel like I have to do is like additional that I'm doing, which is out of my interest. So they have never been a time when like, oh, I have to like reach those. So it's been pretty straightforward because it was part of the contract as well, which was nice.
And do you know, like if you want to go for promotion, do you know what is required for that?
Yes.
You
They
do.
do regular, like as we have the mentorship committee in our radiology division, and luckily it is in the body section, the person who's organizing it. So they make sure like there's a review process, like the details about they do as part of a noon lecture from the admin side. They give there is like the med school which kind of organizes this program where they tell about like how to apply, when to apply, and what's the process, what's required to apply for a promotion process. That happens I think every year. So they kind of like send a separate email and say like, hey, look out for this email. And the mentorship in our thing, they also request them to do a separate one just for the radiology faculty. They made sure like it happens every year. So in case somebody is like wanting to apply, they try to do it in the first half of the year so that by the time they have to apply like somewhere like September or something, they are already making a mental checklist and starting to apply. So they made it like every year, which is nice.
Okay, that's great. Rob, what sorts of things are you learning as you're looking around?
I'm still kind of early in the process where I don't know the specifics of requirements at different institutions for advancement, but I get the general sense that of wanting to be involved in research and producing papers, as well as presenting at conferences, and continuing that sort of path is an expectation.
Okay. So anyone else on the call want to chime in?
Yeah, this is Andrew. I'm not looking, of course, but this is just out of curiosity. Like, have you felt like those who may be looking for more academically heavy positions in the next couple of years, there might be kind of a dearth of positions like that, just with how much clinical demand there is and the shortage of radiologists? Like, are there going to be more positions more heavily weighted towards clinical work than there otherwise would be if there weren't sort of a shortage? Or have you not been seeing anything like that?
I think that's a great question. I personally, I haven't heard that shift is occurring. I think that academic institutions are starting to offer more. They are starting to offer more pure clinical track options, and there are institutions that are separating the traditional tenure process from the promotion process. So my understanding is that it's taking away that sort of like up and out sort of mentality that we have at UW, for instance, and kind of separating that from just the time-based promotion, or separating it from the need to be promoted per se. So I think that there are some institutions that are evolving their academic standards. And I think that there are some institutions that are offering maybe more clinical track options than they would have otherwise. I am not familiar with institutions getting rid of academic positions if people should want them. But that's not to say that it's not happening. I'm hearing a lot of angst about how people are going to be successful in their clinical careers when they're intrinsically motivated to have an academic career, and how are they going to accomplish that with all of the challenges that we're facing these days. One of the things that surprised me in my conversation with some of the mid-career faculty is the number of folks who are in academic positions who do not know their institutional promotion guidelines or standards or expectations. And I think that that sort of not knowing produces a lot of anxiety, to sort of be unaware of what it is that they actually, like, what is the goalpost that they're actually shooting for. So I would encourage you, if you don't know your institutional standards, to learn them, ask about them, find out what they are. And if you're in the job search position, to try to figure some of that out as you're exploring your different employment options, and what will be expected of you, what support will you have from your institution to do the things that you want to do, what will be expected of you once you're there. Beth, do you have wisdom to add?
I was just going to amplify that, Jess, that, I think that's at many different levels, that you don't necessarily know what are the criteria, because the criteria are changing, and it's not to be frustrated, but it's to have just that ability to take a breath and say, okay, some things might be in flux right now, and I was told this, but now I'm being asked to do this clinically, and that might go on for a short period. But that, the degree of understaffing in both the private sector and the academic sector is like at an all-time high. And there's a lot of false promises going out there. And I think that's when it's really key, like at a society level, I mean, with the people on this call, with others that you'll meet, that you have a camaraderie to get yourself through some of those times that are a little bit challenging. And just to know that time is on your side, you're going to get through the other side of this. And just to keep, it's like, is the glass half empty or half full? To keep thinking about the positive things that are at work, the positive relationships you have, not only in your own institution, but across the country, and to really rely on those. And I'm at the Society of Breast Imaging right now because I'm kind of a body breast person, but and it's just so fun to be in societies, and that's where you get your energies up again, to see other people and whatnot. But it is a tough time right now. And think about our predecessors who went through the Great Depression. I mean, we've had tough times in this country, and we can get through this, but you might have to readjust your time scale a little bit, but just have that broader perspective that we're going to get through this. But as you go through that, reach out to others around you and form relationships that help you sustain your energy.
And I'll add too that, people that are more senior in their career have a little bit more mental bandwidth, right? Because we're not under the same pressures that early career folks are under. And people that are later in their career also have a lot of wisdom to offer and are really excited to offer that wisdom. And for the most part, like, having mentorship relationships is cup filling rather than cup emptying. So I would encourage you to keep, to remind yourself that even if someone is more senior in their career, that they're still a human being, just like you, number one. And number two, that they really want to help. They want to hear what questions you have. They want to give advice and help your career. They want to see you successful because that's part of what has driven so many of us into academics, is really watching the next generation blossom. And so even if we don't know you, like, we still want to see you be successful, and we want to see you happy and thriving. And so many of us would be really excited if you came up to us at a meeting and asked for advice. So make sure that you take advantage of those networks when you're in these, at the societal meetings, or in Dallas in October, for instance. So what sorts of connections have the early career folks made with mid and later career faculty who either at home or at the national level? And how have you, what have you gained from those relationships?
Yeah, this is Andrew again. Yeah, so I'm in end of my second year as faculty, and it's like, even over those 2 years, I mean, it's already like you're starting to build relationships, and you see people that you know from one meeting, and then you see them the next time, and you build that longitudinal relationship, and it's really rewarding. Like through SABI and both SAR, for example, like, you get to know people also interested in kidney masses, and then we talk about ideas and where the field is going, and it's just really rewarding. And then not only do they have similar clinical interests or research interests than you, but they're just interesting people who are farther along in their careers, and you see how they got to where they are, and hopefully you're one of those people too, that someday the circle of life continues in academia. So yeah, I mean, even over a short duration of time, like 2-ish years, it's really rewarding to just get to know people and see how those sort of relationships evolve.
Awesome. Great. Well, let's shift gears slightly, and let's I think a lot of this discussion for me centers on well-being, and really this discussion in particular focuses on sort of professional fulfillment, right? And how professional fulfillment can augment your well-being. If you're not professionally fulfilled, that's going to detract from your well-being. So what I would ask you to do right now is to think about what are some of the things that fill your professional cup, like that really re-energize you professionally. I'm sure we all have lots of things that fulfill us personally and fill our cup personally, and I'm not discounting those things, and I'd love to learn all those things about you. But in this context, what are some of the things that fill your professional cup and make you more energized to come to work, or the things that get you out of bed every morning, or that get you to your 9 p.m. shift, as the case might be for our night float folks?
I think for me, one of the things I always enjoy with any shift I have, even if it is the coming up 9 p.m. shift, is just seeing interesting or unique cases, and ones that are challenging to figure out, but once you like make the key finding that puts it all together, that's kind of what makes it enjoyable. But also have other things I enjoy, is just trying to find ways of improving efficiency. So like finding out the special macros and PowerScribe to allow the ultrasound measurements of different velocities through a whole leg arterial Doppler to automatically populate instead of spending 15 minutes dictating each velocity. So those kind of things that kind of both improve the time that you're having, as well as the future residents and radiologists trying to do the similar type of study, making that life a little bit better for everyone. Makes it enjoyable.
Great. Cool. Anyone else?
It's the thing I love about interesting the day is like there's not pretty much no clinical day that goes by where I don't see at least multiple cases that are super interesting, and I'm like I want to follow up on them. And I've talked to like mid to late career people about this too, and I feel like that feeling doesn't really go away. Like there's always something interesting, and that gets me excited to start the clinical work every day. There's always something new.
All right, great. Anu, were you going to say something?
Yes, sorry, I lost like transferring my phone call from the earbuds. For me, it's more like the teamwork that I like, because there are days when we are high, when we are low in our thing, volume is low, crazy things happen. But I really like when the team you work with are awesome. Like they kind of try to take on like things from you if it's getting crazy, and always look out for you. So that's important for me. And also the residents, where because we are catering to them like as students, and they're receptive, they are wanting to learn and appreciate what you do. That makes me fill my cup too. And when you have all this, you're happy, your mind is much more clearer to target to your goals of like you want to do research, something else outside of your regular work. You have the clear mind to do it. So I think that's very important. Don't have to have politics in your section, like deal peacefully with it, work as a team. That fills my cup.
Excellent. Is anyone else interested in sharing? So that was a great segue, Anu. Thank you. Liz, Beth says teamwork is key to fulfillment. Awesome. Yes. So I think I know sharing what fills your professional cup might feel like we're sitting in a story circle, but I think that kind of taking some time to think about these things is really important to maintain your professional fulfillment, so that you can what are the things that make you happy, so that you can try to incorporate little bits of that into your day as much as you can. So for me, I really like my patient interactions. And so I try to find opportunities to give results directly to patients. It doesn't work all that often, but when I'm on ultrasound, I can go give the results directly to the patients that are in the department. When I'm at an offsite clinic, I can do the same thing. And having that opportunity to talk with the patients in a different setting is really fulfilling to me. So I know that the more I can try to do that little thing in my day, it makes me happier, and it opens my brain and allows me a little bit more energy to do all of the other things. So I would encourage you to think about the things that make you happy and that fulfill you, so that you can just try to increase that just a little bit. And like every little bit that you can ratchet up the things that you really like can help you get through some of the harder stuff in your day, in my opinion. So I would encourage that activity. It also helps, in my opinion, to think about these things so that you can kind of strategize your activities as well. So thinking about the things that fill your professional cup, so to speak, and the things that that really drive you, kind of like your moral compass and your passion compass. And I think that as you can identify and clarify the things that you're really intent on pursuing, it can help you decide what are the things you're going to say yes to doing, what are the things that you might what are the opportunities that you might pass along to other folks because they aren't aligned with your passions. I think that kind of having that self-reflection, that self-clarity can help you strategize with your activities. Any thoughts to add? I Does anyone have any questions for the group?
So I have a question for you, Dr. Robbins. Wondering if there's anything that you see that a lot of the early career members at your institution, if there's any common theme to things they struggle with or challenges that they encounter, and what kind of advice you give to them for whatever the common challenges they face are.
I think there are a couple, and one of them kind of goes back to knowing your institution's requirements for promotion. And so one of the things that I've really tried to work hard on creating in our department is a lot of transparency and trying to make the advice more uniform across the department, like, and the advice that our mentors are giving to our junior faculty, because I think that sometimes there's hearsay, and sometimes people kind of have this impression that that the institution wants them to do X, Y, and Z, or that the expectation is that they do A, B, and C, but that isn't necessarily aligned with the true expectations. And so this like malalignment of perception and expectations creates anxiety, especially when people are getting information from a lot of other sources. So I think that really kind of like going to the source, knowing what the true requirements are, asking people that know the true requirements. So just so that you know, you have very defined goalposts. I think, like, you know, we make goals and objectives for our residents when they go through every rotation, and that's something that we know is important to, like, know what is it that you are expected to be doing during this set period of time. And so I think that knowing what those expectations are is really critical. And then I think another somewhat related challenge is that I think that there are some people that are under the I don't know if they're under the impression, but I feel like there are people that are doing things that they think are good for their academic career that don't align with their passions. And so when you're doing things that you think are good for your career that don't align with your passions, it's more work, it's harder, it's not as fulfilling. And I would challenge you all to think creatively about how to make your passions work for your academic career. So that's something that I try to spend a lot of time with my junior faculty, is to think about, like, what is it that you really want to be doing, and how can we then turn your passions into what I call academic currency? So how can we make your passions work for your promotion as opposed to working for your promotion? Because I think that perspective of, like, having your passions work for your promotion as opposed to doing things for your promotion, I think that's an important mental frame shift. And so I think that is the thing. I think those are the top two things that early career folks struggle with from an academic perspective. And then I think thirdly is the clinical volumes are crushing and makes everything very difficult. And you know, I think that's a for real thing that a lot of people, even mid and late career folks, are struggling with, as well as how to keep up with the crushing volumes that we are all experiencing. Does anyone else want to weigh in on those things? I'll turn it back to you, Rob. What are some of the things that you see in the junior like, have you seen any kind of common pitfalls in junior faculty at your institution?
I guess kind of touching back to your third point of the crushing volumes, like, that's definitely been a issue for everyone. And as I mentioned earlier, sometimes that can, or at least the perspective that I got was sometimes that was being shifted towards the junior faculty, where they're losing some of the academic time that they need to be successful, which impose a challenge for them. But I think everyone out there is hiring more faculty to help with that clinical volume. And I think, as Andrew mentioned earlier, whether there's kind of hiring more clinical oriented people or places, expanding the community division, which is the more clinically oriented division that helps out with all other divisions in terms of their volume. But I think most key important thing is teamwork of everyone kind of fighting for each other and helping make sure things are under control.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
I have a comment just about being junior faculty, and it's kind of a realization I've had over the last 2 years that I think may be helpful for like residents and fellows to hear. But you go through training as a medical student and resident as a fellow, and you always have like a class, right, that you're with, and it's kind of built in that you have other people who are going along and are in the exact same situation as you. But when you get to faculty, for the most part, you're kind of on your own, which is a little disorienting. Like your new peers, so to speak, are other faculty members who are much farther along in their careers than you, and you don't really have a class like you did for the prior 10 years of your life. And so it's helpful for things like, the early career committee to find those sort of people who are in that same situation as you. But even within their early career committee, there's still heterogeneity. Like everyone's not at your same level and are not necessarily dealing with the same issues. But it's helpful to just acknowledge that you have to seek out the sort of peers more so than you did previously in your training.
So Andrew, would it be helpful for there to be some sort of organized structure at your institution that would sort of cohort the early career faculty either in the department or across the institution?
I think it would, yeah, either through the institution or even through like an organization like SABI. I remember when I first started, I tried to get like all the like early career people, tenure track people to get together just for a social event, and it didn't pan out, unfortunately. But yeah, something like that, just people who are in the same situation, I think would be helpful because you're all kind of learning from each other, and it's just a totally different experience as an early career faculty than it has been previously. Like when you're in your training, there's always at least a clearer goal, like you're trying to earn a degree or whatever, and it's just totally different and not something you're really ever prepared for until you're learning by doing.
So the comment that you made about trying to get people together and it didn't work out is one of the things that worries me, because I think we want to create community, but we're all so busy that like we try to create the community and then it doesn't pan out. So I think your experience is probably echoed in so many different varieties across the spectrum, right? That like, we try to get community, people want community, we want to form community, we want to foster community, but how do we do it? When do we do it so that we can get a group of folks together? I'm excited that we have 9 faces here tonight. But I think
I mean, because everyone's so busy, especially when you're early career, like most people are starting to have children at that time, and it's hard to like get together and in free time. It's just the nature of that stage of your life, I guess. But maybe that's why, like, I don't know, something like that through an organization is helpful, because if you're already at an annual meeting, for example, you're already dedicating that time to meeting with people. I don't know, just throwing that out there. But I think the sort of interactions with people in your similar situation are definitely helpful.
so lots of peer mentorship. Excellent. Okay. Well, Did you have any other questions, either Rob or others? Beth has her hand up.
Am I there? Okay,
Yes.
so I just wanted to say this because I've got to run to this other thing. But I remember Jessica Robbins when she was you. And you look, you have perspective over time, and you look at the growth that people go through. And sometimes that growth is not only growth good during good times, but also through times of struggle. And it's hard to go through that. And right now, this is a time of struggle. And these small groups of kind of talking it through, I think, are really important. But I just look at the growth, Jessica, that you've had. And I know that all the people on this call will go through a similar growth. And it's a fight worth fighting, but it's you do it in community, you do it with teamwork, you do it with, you know, reassessing what your values are and living up to those values. But it's a time where you kind of have to reach deep, at times, but it's we'll get through the other side of this, and people will be stronger because of it. And I just wanted to thank you, Jessica, for all that you've said today and all the people on the call. I think it's a really neat interaction to have.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, and thanks for your kind words. I remember our first meeting so many years ago.
I know. It was so special. And we met at RSNA, right? I mean, you were giving one of the talks of colonography, and I was there, and you so struck me from the very beginning. And that's how you meet other people. You meet other people as you're just at these meetings or whatever, but you have these moments together, and then you watch each other grow. And that's what makes it so meaningful. So.
Absolutely. It is like the best part. I mean, there are lots of best parts about academic radiology and a career in academics. And I hope that everyone here gets, has some of these like touchstone moments that really fuel you forward.
Right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great meeting.
Thanks.
So, any other closing comments?
I just want to second what Andrew had mentioned, having meeting up with people in the societies and having these mentors. I've had mentors whenever there's a flyer coming out for the mentors, I sign up. I have a mentor from AUR, SABI, SAR, because every mentor that I've had have different perspectives, and they have a different background from where they've come from and where they are now. So I've always learned something new from them, and they've always enriched more. When I go for the meeting, I meet them, and then they introduce me to their peers or somebody else, and that's how relationships grow. And they have always texted me and kept in touch, and they're oh, see, there's something coming up, are you interested? Which is opportunities which probably I wouldn't have directly reached those points. So if there are residents and fellows listening, I would highly encourage all these societies are really reaching out and wanting to give a hand out to bring them up, and just reach out to that hand. That's all I would say. Those are great opportunities. And as SABI, part of what you're doing now, Dr. Robbins, thank you so much. This is awesome, and these are great advice, and I hope people benefit from this. And also for the promotion track, when people are it's very important to know from their institution wise. Plus I think when they're going from assistant to associate, they need a letter from an outside institution or somebody who they've not worked with. And that's not easy to get unless you develop the professional relationship at these meetings and societies if you work with them. So I think it's important to develop the network and to know that you have to go to these meetings and have some mentors or work with them.
Absolutely. Everything that Anu just said, please remember. Super awesome advice and comments there. Take advantage of mentors. You can never have too many mentors. Every single person around you can offer you advice from a perspective that's slightly or very different from your own. And each mentor is really valuable in their own right. So fill your bucket or your table with a lot of mentors from different specialties, different institutions. Meet as many people as you can. Everyone wants to help you. Excellent. Well, I think we touched on the points that I was hoping that we would get to throughout this hour. So I'm gonna, Rob, unless you've got anything else on your agenda, let's maybe end a few minutes early.
Sure. Yeah, I think answered all the questions I had or could think of so far.
Great. Well, I'm happy to stay on if people are more comfortable in one-on-one. I'll stick my email address in the chat as well, and if anyone wants to reach out, feel free to do that as well.
And just to note, we will have a recording of this up on the website in the members only area in the next couple of days.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Drew, and thanks to Drew for helping make this event as seamless and successful as it has been. Appreciate everything that you do, Drew.
Thank you, Dr. Robbins, for your time and stories and wisdom on this topic. I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure. All right. Well, I look forward to seeing you all in Dallas in October.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank
Drive
you.
safe.